All right, welcome back. We just had a little loo break and we are ready to talk more business, which is our
Yes.
forte. We're both cleaning business owners, as you would know, and pretty successful in our own respects. At least that's what other people say about us. We don't want to sound cocky or anything, but Arlene, she's built a great business, so I really want to pick her brain and get into that. So we talked a little bit about how you got into the business and kind of your journey to get to where you are now. But um, I want to talk more about kind of the recent developments into forensic cleaning because we've got a bit of a share connection there because obviously we went over to Brisbane together and we did the forensic cleaning course and we completed it together. And it's just a really interesting topic that I think a lot of people would be keen to learn more about, but don't know much about or know how to break into it. So I think we'll start by talking about that. Yeah. So I guess first of all, you've done a few forensic cleans already. How many
Yeah.
have you done now? You've done like five or six, have you?
Six, I think we've done. So either six or seven. Yeah.
And so what was your first job like? Because I know I was pretty fortunate with the first one I got, but what was your first one like?
So I had you want the first quote or the first job that we did?
First job, yeah.
First job we did was in a like halfway house in the city. So obviously where maybe drug addicts, ex-drug addicts, or those without homes were living in a like a rooming house. It's a heritage building that's been converted into, I think it was 42 rooms with shared bathroom and kitchen facilities. And basically, a gentleman had passed away and had been dead probably for about 4 weeks before he was found. So when we went there, um, that was really interesting because I couldn't understand how nobody had found him before they actually did, because all the rooms are like very close to one another. But what had happened was the gentleman had had gallbladder surgery. And obviously, because it's like a halfway house, nobody keeps track of anybody coming in and out. And apparently, this gentleman used to disappear for, a few days at a time and then he'd come home. And he must have come home from his surgery and, yeah, must have got sick and just never came out of his bedroom again. But nobody noticed until the smell coming from the room was really bad. And then, of course, I suppose the rooming manager went in and she was the one who found him. So I think that was a really good one for our first one because it was only a bedroom, although it was pretty intense in there because he'd been living in quite intense squalor as well. So there was a million cockroaches in there. Most of the bodily fluids had been collected by things that he'd got on the floor and the mattress. So there wasn't a lot of. So most people don't realize that forensic cleaning is not actually cleaning work, it's more restoration work. So there wasn't a lot of restoration to do in that home because once we'd cleared everything out, there was not a lot of damage to the floors. So we only on that particular one needed to sand the floor, it was a wooden floor, and then actually paint it. So we call that encapsulation. And that's to prevent the smell, the odor, and anything coming back up into the environment. So that was a pretty good one to do for our first one. So I took one staff member, um, because all of the staff have been told if they don't want to do this kind of work, if they do a job and they're like, no, it's not for me, they don't have to do it. We will only do the work that they want to do. But once we'd finished, it took us all day. So it took us 16 hours to clear, clean, and encapsulate one room. Once we'd finished, yeah, Shah did that one with me, and they were like, actually, it's no different and no worse or better than any of the hoarder squalor jobs that we do. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you got a really good core team that's like
yeah,
directly transferable to that sort of work. And I think it's great when you build the main business and then you have those resources that you can allocate to stuff like this because the work is so sporadic and unpredictable. I feel like if you go the opposite way and like if I built a forensic business and then tried to build a regular cleaning business, it's a bit counterintuitive as opposed to just building the regular one first. And then I've got all these resources and I've already got the cash flow of the main business to prop that one up. But um, yeah, in that first job, were there any things that kind of caught you off guard or things that you weren't expecting? Because obviously we did the training and we had a good idea of what to expect, but in the line of work we do, there's obviously the LCCCs, which is your limitations, complexities, complications, etc. Did you find any of that stuff? Was there any limitations? Were there any complications or anything like that when you did that first job?
The only ones would have been in relation to the floor because it was a listed building. It was lucky because there was not much damage to the floor. But if there had been more damage to the floor, the complication or limitation would have come because we wouldn't have been allowed to take up the floor, which is potentially what we would have needed to do. But in this situation, we were able to just paint over it. So that one, not really. In fact, we haven't yet come across a scenario where we've been given a really severe limitation or we've had a really big complication. So I would imagine at some point that's going to come. But that's where Megan from Valley to Beach Forensic Cleaning, she's incredible. Pretty much on every single one that I've done, I've had to call Megan at some point to be like, this is what we need to do. Like, how do I do it? Because we're still learning.
Yeah, she is amazing. Like the
She
very
is.
first one I did, I called her up. I was like, this has happened. What do I do? I had absolutely no clue what to do. And she just told me, like, oh, you do this and that. And that was it. And it was like so invaluable having someone like that we can call because it's one of those jobs where it requires a lot of intuition because every job is so different and you can't just
Yeah.
refer back to a textbook or Google it. So there's a lot of intuition and there's like a lot of problem solving too, especially
Mm,
in some cases where, if you're trying to get to the root of like where an odor is coming from, you may have to cut out a piece of wall and then follow that wall underneath the house and get to the point where the contamination has kind of crept through to the very source of it. So then a lot of problem solving, a lot of decision making on the fly, and
yeah.
um, it's really different to any other type of cleaning. And like you said, it's not even cleaning at all. It's really just restoration and in some cases remediation if we're using biosands and things like that. But yeah, in my first job, probably the easiest sort of job I could have gotten. It was elderly lady who passed away and wasn't found for a while, and then I believe it was the son who found her. There were a couple of limitations and um, I guess complications for me in that one. I was given the backstory, so I knew what happened. But when I got to the property, the son and his friend were there to kind of let me in. What I didn't realize is that her son had flown in or driven in from 18 hours away to be there. And he fully intended on staying in the house that night and then sorting out all of her affairs and like getting the house clean because it was a rental and he fully intended on staying there and he lived so far away. So I didn't realize this, but when I started the job, I had a very firm time limit. And it's
Yeah.
only it's only when I got halfway through the job and I called him up and I said, "Hey, I'm going to have to get rid of the carpet underlay as well." And he said, "That's fine. When do you think you'll be done?" And I said, "Oh, probably another 2 hours." And he said, that's when he told me like he needs it done ASAP because he actually needs to go there because he has nowhere else to go. And so that was like, yeah, that was that was one of those things that just pops up and it's like, oh well, I'd have to deal with this now. So, and then like the neighbor came over and the neighbor was like, "Where's whatever her name was?" And I'm like, okay, that's obviously the woman who's passed away. And so I said, look, I don't know much, but all I've been told is that she's passed away. I'm just here to clean up. I could tell that he was obviously a friend of hers, so I felt comfortable saying that. But yeah, and then obviously I got suited up in my hazmat, and I tried to do that discreetly, but there wasn't really any point I could do that. And so the neighbors
Yeah.
saw me, and then at that point, like they know what's going on. Like there's so many external variables that come into this sort of thing where like when we're learning it, we know that this stuff is a possibility, but then it just kind of jumps out at you and it's like, oh, I have to I have to deal with this right now. It's like, oh my gosh, this is actually really nerve wracking. And then at the end of the clean, like everything went well. I the bed, I cut out the contaminated piece of the bed, put the bed on a trailer, took that to the tip, all that stuff. Um, and like in forensic cleaning, if there's a contaminated carpet, for example, you don't just remove that contaminated piece, you usually rip up all the carpet. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is obviously if someone has died on a particular piece of carpet, you don't want to just cut out that piece so that, like, if their son or their daughter walks in, they see exactly where, that person's passed away. But in this case, I said, look, I'm going to have to remove the underlay. Do you want me to remove all of it? And he goes, no, just cut out, like what you have to, and then I'll sort out the rest later. So I'm also doing things where by my learning and the knowledge I have now, I shouldn't be doing this, but because it's been requested by the client, that's what I'm left with. So long story short, everything went well in the end. I got it done. And then the son of this lady came back with his friend, and he asked me just to like walk him through and show him what I'd done. So I showed him the room. They said everything smelled lovely, which was their main concern because the smell was obviously not great when they were there previously. So I showed him the room, and immediately he just burst into tears, which was
Sad.
I've never like experienced that either. So that really made me feel the gravity of the situation and the work that we do. And it's like, it was really fulfilling work though, because I really felt like I'd done something meaningful. And that night I just didn't sleep for whatever reason. It just, I wasn't thinking about it, but I guess subconsciously it was weighing on my mind a little bit. So yeah, it is very, very impactful work. And that's like the big thing that I love about it. Um, and obviously you've done more than me. So what has your experience been like with all the other ones you've done? And have you kind of experienced that same thing where like you feel the significance of it and it just becomes like this, it's like a purpose driven thing where
Mm.
I feel like I'm called to it in a way. Do you feel that too?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The last one that we just did last week, so we had two last week, two back to back. One was for a real estate agent, and then the other one was for a couple that had been following me on social media. And it was her husband's brother had passed away. But he hadn't been found for about 5 weeks. He lived in this really old home in Burnley, which is very close to the city. And it was really sad because I know lots of people, like, if we talk about this, there's lots of people who will think, oh, why had these, why was it so long before these people were found? And like this one in particular, he purposely lived like a hermit. He'd secluded himself from his family. He purposely pulled away from society for whatever reason that was. And when I went in to see the home, because he'd been passed away for so long, it was very, very visible where it was that he died. Like there was a full-on outline of where he'd lain on the floor in the living room and then where he'd started to decompose. And when I actually went to do the quote, it was really, I was fine until I walked into the living room when he passed away because the family had already been going in and out of the home. So a lot of people don't know that you're not supposed to go into these environments. It's really toxic. But they didn't know this before calling me, and they'd already been in and out of the home. And when I went in where he'd passed away, they'd covered him up with a sheet. And I was like, that would have been really hard to see as a family member, like where they actually passed away. That one was the last one that we just did. That was probably the biggest one that we've done so far. That one was insane. So that was the one that Megan came down to help us with, which I'm actually now really, really grateful for. Because on this particular one, we had to cut out because you never know the scope of works until you start. So you can guess, but you don't actually know.
Yeah, because the
And yeah,
people
for
calling
this,
you in, they have no idea what needs to be done. So it's not until you actually go there and do it that you're like, oh, I actually need to be cutting out walls and all this stuff.
yeah, well, that's what happened with this one. So I've not actually done that before. I hadn't cut out skirting boards. We had to cut out a section of skirting boards. We had to cut out a section of a door frame. We had to take out a whole section on the opposite side of the room. So he'd passed away. There was like a half wall, and he'd passed away close to the half wall. So we had to take away, yeah, like the skirting board, and then we had to take probably about 200 mil of the gyprock. So we had to cut out the wall. But then when we took the carpet up, I was absolutely blown away because we could see the outline of the gentleman on the floor, but that was all that we could see. So I don't really know what I was expecting in my mind. Like I've taken up a few carpets now, and usually it just like goes straight through. But with this particular home, because it was 1,000 years old, the underlay underneath the carpet, it was like paper. There was no like, normally they're like real foamy.
Yep.
There was no foam. It was all paper and it had been glued to the floor. And when we pulled the carpet up, the actual spread of the bodily fluids was insane. Like it
Wow.
was insane. I don't think did I send the photos in the group chat? I don't know if I
I
did.
don't that one I don't think so. But like yeah, the first one I did, same sort of thing. When I ripped up the carpet, the underlay was so old. It must have been like a 60-year-old house. But it was just chunks of underlay. It was like very papery, and if you scraped it, it just disintegrated into a million pieces, and it was really, really difficult to deal with. But so, are you saying there was like running fluids under the
It was
carpet?
not, it was, no, it was not running fluid. So when we started to pull up the carpet, I thought the underlay was red. And it wasn't until we got like literally, I'm talking about like a 5 meter circle where obviously when he'd been decomposing, it had been spreading underneath the carpet, and the circumference of how far he'd got
Wow.
was huge, was insane. So that one was really difficult. It was really good having Megan because I think because we're still really new, we haven't got everything that we need. But of course, I don't know what it is that we need until I get to like each
Mm.
job. So Megan was like, I've got like a tool bag now. I feel like a right boss bitch actually walking around with my tool bag with me, all my gear in there and everything. But she was like, have you got a multi-tool? And I was like, I don't even know what one of those is. And it's a special tool that's got a special angled, like little saw on it so that you can cut into the walls and
It's
things
like
and
a
take off the skirting.
reciprocating saw, is it?
No, it's different. That I've
Different.
got a reciprocating saw,
Yeah.
but the blade on it was too long. So I was in danger of cutting through the
Yeah.
structure and any
Yeah.
wiring behind. It's kind of like an angle grinder kind of tool. And then I've only got one. We've got like this long red handled like scraper that we use to scrape things off the floor, particularly when we're at hoarding jobs. But when we were scraping up the underlay, because it was glued down to the floor and it was only paper thin, it literally took us hours
Mm.
to get the underlay up. And Megan had to go and buy two more of those scrapers for us from Bunnings because we were just never going to get the job done in the time frame that we needed.
Yeah.
So it was really good to have Megan there to be like, this is what you need now. You need these extra tools. Go and get these different bags. These are better. It was great. But yeah, we all just like same thing. We all came out and G and Amity did this. Two more new staff members did this. This was their first one, and they both are like, "Yeah, it's fine. We can do this." I think we all like. It's just like it's all different. So everything that we do, it's not like domestic cleaning. I feel is to me is a bit boring. Like I could never go out
Mm.
and do domestic cleaning. It's the same clients, same homes, same things, day in, day out. The work that we do is never the same. No day is ever the same. And this is just like an extension of the work that we already do. It's so interesting.
It's also really meaningful work, which just adds to it even further. And same thing, like my main business is predominantly residential and commercial recurring, and it is boring. And the only reason that I find enjoyment in it is because I create content, and like there's a lot more other stuff that I do, but purely focusing on work, the forensic cleaning is something that I really do love. And I think you need to have a passion for it, and you need to feel like you have some sort of calling to it to be able to function in that role, because otherwise it will take a toll on you first of all, and you just simply won't enjoy it, and it's not something that you'll be able to do for very long, because that is the type of job where you will burn out quickly.
Yeah. It was really nice going to see the family after. They both had same with your guy. I ended up giving them both a hug, which I don't normally do, because they were both yeah, so grateful because they now can go into that home and not have that vision anymore.
Hmm.
They didn't want to go in there. We were able to safely save some of the things that they wanted from the home, and now they're never going to have to go in and see what it is that they could see. I tell you what was interesting. So Amity, who came on the clean with us, her parents flip homes. And when we got rid of all the underlay and then we were painting the floor, she actually was like, "Oh my God." She was like, "My mum and dad have been into homes that they flipped, and they've talked about the fact that they've seen homes where there's like a random patch of paint on the floor." And she's like, "And we've never known what that was for." And I was like, "It means that somebody died in there."
Yeah, because you don't have to disclose it in Australia. But yeah,
No,
if you go into a house and you pull up flooring and there is just messy white paint,
paint.
someone's died there, or something really bad has happened there, and there's been blood
Something's
everywhere or
happened
something.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
fun
that's a note for
fact.
everybody to pay attention to. If you plan on flipping houses, come across a painted floor, that's what's happened.
And if it looks like it was painted by someone who is not a professional painter, like Arlene,
Yep.
that's what it is. Yeah. And another thing as well with these cleans, I think a really important part of the whole process is everything leading up to it. So like I found that after I did that clean for this guy whose mother had passed, he had a whole bouquet of flowers that he gave to me and he said, "I want you to give this to Stacy," because Stacy was the point of contact. Like I had just become certified in the forensic and crime scene cleaning, and literally the week I got back to WA, we got a call
Yeah.
asking if we do forensic cleaning, and I was like,
You got
"This
the
is
first one.
it's too perfect." Because I hadn't put out into the world that I do this yet. I hadn't put it on the website. It wasn't on socials or anything. And so they called, and Stacey, being Stacey, was so lovely. Um, Pretty much held his hand through the whole process and was reassuring him of how we were going to take care of it, that we will take care of it. And then he shared a bit more as well, and he said that the only other forensic cleaners in Bunbury, which is where this was, um, they apparently shared photos of a scene that they were at, and those photos circulated around Bunbury, and they pretty much lost all their credibility by doing that. And he said, "I didn't want to go with them, but I didn't know who to turn to because they're like the only notable people who do it." So, yeah, he called us, and thankfully it was around the time I got certified, and then I did that. And at the end, like he was so appreciative, and he gave me flowers to give to Stacey because he really appreciated how she helped him through that process, because it is like it's a big part of the grieving stage. It's like
Yeah.
someone that is very close and dear to them has just passed away, and that is very fresh, and we're for the most part like their first point of contact after
We're
that,
there.
because
Yeah, it is. We are. They're told by the police. So when they are informed, they're then told by the police that they have to find a forensic cleaner. So, like, we're pretty much the first call that they make from then onwards. And it's a really challenging call to have because, like, I've done a few now, because they're, like you say, they're grieving, they're sad, but then I have to ask really difficult questions. I have to ask them how long they were passed away for, where did they pass away, do they know the flooring, did they have any blood infections that we need to know about, what are the circumstances of the death, because we need to know whether it's somebody that may have committed suicide, so we need to know, and if that happened, how, because we need to know if there's lots of blood present, and then we have to have the conversation with them straight away about who's paying.
yeah, it's such a difficult thing to do because to
Yeah.
them, someone they love has just died. But at the same time, it is a service that we're offering, and there is transactional value. So that discussion about money needs to be had, and it's such a hard thing to do because we as people don't want to just ask for money and talk about that. We just want to help them, and so
Yeah.
it's really difficult. But also going back to those those questions that you have to ask for the people that don't know. If someone dies, pretty much after 3 or 4 days, the human body is toxic to other humans when the decomp process starts. So if you walk into a room where someone has died and they haven't been found for a week, that air inside that room is now toxic to other human beings. So when you go into that room, that's why you have to know things like that, like how long they've been passed away for, how they died, because you can be walking into a room where someone's potentially been dead for months, and that can be so bad for your health in so many different ways, and the way they died as well. And um, you pretty much you have to be vaccinated for a lot of things if you do this stuff.
Yeah.
If there's bloodborne pathogens and things like hepatitis and um, HIV and whatever else, these
Yeah.
are other things that we have to think about. And if there's needles, like there's so many questions that have to be asked. And it's at that point where, for the most part, they've just found out this has happened, and now they have to be interrogated by a forensic cleaner, and
Stranger. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a really stressful time for both parties. So
And they're like really expensive cleans, and not just because of the work that it is, because it's really specialized. There are not really that many of us that do it, but the equipment and the tools and everything that's involved in the clean from a business perspective, they're really expensive for a business. So like we have to have that conversation because, if a family is not able to pay for the clean, then it can't be something that can be done for free because the cost to the business is actually huge. Like we didn't make any money at all from our first three at
yeah,
all.
I lost a lot of money on that first one because I actually bought more stuff than I needed just in
Yeah,
case. And I was like negative $1,000 after the first one.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like
The stuff that
the
you need.
yeah, and the value of these cleans is so high, and it's largely because the material cost is so high as well. But like the guy I talked to on my first clean, he said that he was quoted, I think, $3,500 for a job that for anyone experienced would take like an hour and a half to 2 hours. It took me about four. But yeah, like I ended up charging him $500, and I said like I appreciate you um, having me in here and doing this for you. I'm new to this. I was fully upfront with that. I was like, this is my first one. Um, so I appreciate you trusting me to take care of this. And so I want to help you out by giving you a really fair price, considering that I'm new to this as well. So like he was really grateful for that. And that made me feel even better about it too, that I was able to help in more ways than one. But yeah, it's like very, very expensive sort of cleaning. And there's some jobs that can be 30, 40, sometimes more $1,000
Yeah,
if you're cleaning the whole house. So, the family not only has to deal with the passing, but then also the cost, which can be really, really cumbersome.
huge.
Yeah.
If somebody's been passed away in a home for 5 weeks, nothing in the home can stay, like nothing. So, rubbish removal costs alone can be $5,000. The chemicals that we have to purchase for these cleans, some of the chemicals are like $250 for a 5 liter bottle. Like it's
Yeah.
insanely expensive. The equipment, the ozone machines that we have to purchase, the thermal foggers, they're a grand each. The actual cost of starting and running a forensic business is expensive. So for anybody that thinks it's a big money maker, it and that's it, that's why they would get into it. You need to be able to have the money in the bank to set it up and get it going.
Yeah. And it's like, just for example, in summer, if you're going to be doing forensic cleaning in summer, simply the coveralls that you wear, the hazmat suits that you buy, those are like 15 to $30 each. And in
Yeah,
summer, you can't spend more than 20 minutes in one of those things before you have to take
inside,
a break. And then obviously when you take a break, you got to take it off and then put a new
take it
one
off.
on. So
Yeah,
between gloves, suits, like rubbish costs, you can be
the
spending
mask.
upwards of, it can be a couple $1,000s just in materials just to get the
Yeah,
clean done. So
yeah,
that's a whole other thing as well, is trying to quote it accurately. Um, that is probably the hardest part of the job, especially when you don't have the full picture of what actually needs to be done. So many different variables involved. And like you said, if people just want to get into it because they think the money's good, it is good, but that's because it is so difficult to get to that point. And so for the people that don't already have an established cleaning business, that have no prior industry knowledge, if you don't at least go and work for someone else who's already doing it or have a really great mentor, it's a field that you'll quickly sink in. And like we're
yeah.
so lucky to have Megan because she's a really great mentor. And I don't think any of us could do this without a mentor. And
No,
so
absolutely not.
yeah, like if any people that want to get into it, you really have to either work for someone for an extended period of time. I would say at least a year in this sort of thing to become proficient at it, or do the training like we did and then have a mentor that you can basically just have on call to coach you through it one on one, because it is highly, highly specialized work. And that's why there's not many people like us that can do it.
I also don't think that it's a job that can be done by a sole cleaner.
Yeah, I was really wishing I had someone else helping me, like just moving the bed, getting
Moving.
the mattress off the frame, and then disassembling the bed frame by myself. I was like, I wish I brought someone with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was a small job. So if you're doing a big job, which a lot of them are, you're dreaming if you think you can do it by yourself.
No, I don't think you can. I just don't think it would take days and days and days and physical hard labor. And there's just so many moving parts in these jobs. If you don't have a trailer, then you need to have a good connection in the rubbish removal industry. And most people don't have that because why would you? Like, we're really lucky because we've got established relationships with a lot of different types of people in different industries because we've been doing the hoarding and squalor for so long. So for us, it was a really easy transition to make into this work, but I really don't think that it's something that you can do as a domestic cleaner and then easily transition into a forensic cleaning role. I think it takes time and you need experience. So
Also, there's the
that's just my opinion.
psychosocial aspect of it as well.
Yeah,
Like if you do it by yourself, you need to have a support system around you that you can unload onto and that you can debrief
yeah.
with. Because if you let it bottle up inside of you, that is not good for your mental health. And so I'm lucky that I have you and Scott and Gabby and Megan to talk to, and I've got my own staff as well. Even though they haven't worked with me on that sort of stuff, I can at least talk to them about it, and they have a good enough understanding of what the job is that I could relay that to them. But yeah, I would hate to do it alone, and I'm someone who's already like very comfortable by myself.
Being
So
alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like let's talk more about the systems aspect of a business like this and marketing and all the things that go into it. Because I know that have you started doing Google ads for the forensic side?
Yeah. So we started doing Google Ads in October. We built the forensic cleaning page and just like attached it to the website that we've already got. And then obviously it takes time with Google Ads because you've got to work out your keywords and you've got to work out what works and what doesn't, what are people searching for. And obviously it's a really expensive form of advertising. So roughly each lead costs us $250. So for the first 2 months we had a budget of $50 a day. And then in December, because we'd done a couple and we banked a bit of money from the cleans, that was what I used. I then doubled the budget for December. I think it's a bit of a weird month though, because just everybody's so crazy and hectic and everything as well. I think we've had 4 enquiries or 5 enquiries in December, and I just got another two this week that I'll wait to hear back from. So each lead comes at a cost of $250. So you have that before you've even like spoken to anybody. So if you speak to somebody, you've then got to be able to convert them, and then you've got to go out and quote. And if you go out and quote, you need to have a suit and a mask, which is costly, and then you still got no guarantees. You've got your time, and you still got no guarantees you've got the job. So yeah, at the moment we're only spending 2,000 a month on the forensic cleaning campaign, but I'll probably increase that again next year because those are the jobs that we want more of.
It's also one of those things where it's 250 a lead, but because we're dealing with people who have no idea what they even need, they'll often go and get, two other quotes. And then a lot of the time they'll just go with the cheapest quote because it is so
Cheapest.
expensive, and it will probably catch them off guard. Like they're not expecting to be able to spend, five to $10,000 on a cleanup like that. So sometimes they'll go with a cheap one. And what they don't realize is that job is not being done to standard. They're cutting
Standard.
corners. They're not using the proper stuff. They're probably not using the right PPE. And so they're left with a job that is not done 100% right. And with forensic cleaning, that's the last thing you want. It has to be absolutely meticulous because you and I, we've heard stories, and like back in the training, we heard stories about jobs that were not 100%, completely meticulous. And then the family would come and discover something and they would be in absolute hysterics because it wasn't to
Yeah.
standard. And so, like, these are the things that we need to think about. And so, it is also a duty that we have to kind of educate the customers because this, for a lot of people, it's going to be their first time doing this. It's not something that's going to happen many times in your life. And for that reason, everything that comes before the sale matters even more so than the sale itself. And so I think that's something that you do really well. I see it like on your website and on your socials. You talk about the emotional side of the business, and you talk about all the processes that go into it and all the behind the scenes stuff that most people don't get. And I think that's something that you do really well, and that's probably why those two people that came to you from your social media approached you for the forensic stuff, because
Yeah.
you probably educated them without even realizing it, and then fortunately, during an unfortunate time, they were able to go to you because they knew that you were a trusted authority in that field, and you had given them the knowledge that they needed to make an informed decision about that in a tough time. So, I think that's something that you do really well, and
Thanks.
it's so important. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like you said, so many moving parts, and um, yeah, like I'm just so glad I had Megan to talk to, because I was starting to freak out a little bit, and I was like, maybe I'm in over my head. But having someone that you can talk to and having someone trusted who has a lot more experience than you is super essential. And it's like that for anything. Like if you have a mentor, like I've got a mentor now for culture and team building. So I've realized that
Yeah.
that's a weakness of mine. So I pay this lady, and she's not even in the cleaning industry. She owns a jewelry business. I pay her
Yeah.
$400 an hour.
You've been listening to your podcasts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like have you had a mentor before? Do you have one right now? Or
I don't actually. And look, it's probably something I will consider maybe next year or the year after. I've been happy so far with how I've run the business, growing it the way that I've grown it, or which I feel has been really organically. We haven't always done a lot of advertising for staff. So it's not like, oh, it's probably only been late on in this year where I've thought to myself, all right, 2015, 2016, I want to make some big moves. So I feel like probably at that point I will need to look at getting some external help. But I have also run businesses before for other people. So I feel like that's maybe why for now I haven't felt like I've needed it so much, because I already have a lot of experience in making other people money. But there is absolutely no doubt that at some point in the future, somebody else can be like a guide for me and how to maybe take it to the next level. Because this is my retirement fund. This is what this business is for.
yeah, it's a nest egg, and a lot of
Yeah.
the time you don't really want to bring someone else into it, because we like to think we know better, and most of the time we do, because it is our business and we built it. And like I had a mentor just before I started, but then he retired right around the time I actually started. So from starting my business up until a couple months ago, I didn't have a mentor either. And everything was good up until a certain point, and I realized that I was at a bit of a crossroads with culture and team building and the HR side of things, that I was like, I need to talk to someone who is way more experienced and well versed in this than I am. And I get a lot of questions about this, like, should I get a coach or should I get a mentor? And the thing I always tell people is there's two ways that you can learn. So there's the school of hard knocks, and
Yeah.
there's the school of prior learning. So you can either learn something by doing it and failing, and then learning from that failure and getting up and dusting yourself off and doing it again, or you can cut through that and go to someone who's already in the position that you want to be and has gone through all of those failures and stuff, and just pay them for their knowledge or experience. Or if you're lucky, you can find someone who will coach you for free. So those are the two ways that you can learn. Obviously, doing it and being in the trenches yourself and figuring it out is like the most invaluable learning experience that you can have. I'm sure you'll agree. You would have evolved so much as a person by having a business and going through all those things early on. And like, I am a completely different person to what I was 3 or 4 years ago because of all the things that I had to endure. And so, but I'm at a point now where I wanted to engage a mentor, because I know that I need that to be able to get over this hurdle in the business. And it's it's hard as well to let go of certain things and to realize that you need to just admit that you can't do it by yourself. I think that is probably the hardest thing that most people struggle with. I was always someone that was terrible at giving up control, and I've come to realize that I'm actually pretty good at delegating. So I've actually found a strength and a weakness, which is great. But like our businesses are so different, so it
Yeah.
is interesting to see how you operate versus me. But what are your kind of goals going forward for both yourself and your personal brand and also your business? Do you have like a clear picture of where you want to take it, or are you kind of in that limbo stage where you're just playing it day by day and then aggregating information, then you can make a decision later on, which is like what I was doing for the past year. I was just playing it week by week. And then a couple months ago, I sat down and I was like, okay, I've got a really clear understanding of where I want to go. And that's, I want to build a $10 million a year business across 4 locations on the WA coast. And like now I'm super clear about what I want. And now I know how I'm going to get there. So you're pretty much the same on that.
Yeah, so my plan is to build a $10 million business with the intention of once it's at that stage of selling it, because that will be when I want to retire. I don't want to be working until I'm 65, and I definitely don't want to be working for somebody else. So that's kind of like a 10-year plan for me, but hoping I'll get there a bit quicker than that. Um, so I think our plan, so for the first time, I actually sat down with a couple of my team members just last week, and we sat down and we worked on some goals for 2025. And I think our first goal for 2025 is to grow the team, because we turn away so much business, and it's ridiculous that I turn away all of this business because my team is not big enough. So I think our goal for the first 6 months is to be building a bigger team. And we've had to talk about, because we're still quite small, so we're really an intimate team. This is where we've talked about the differences in our business. And it's worked really well and really successfully for us so far. But that can't continue to grow successfully just on that basis. We have to start developing a team, and I have to really move away from wanting this small intimate team if I want to grow the business to $10 million. So we've got to work on a plan on how that's going to grow. And so that's our focus for the first 6 months. And then we are thinking we're going to give domestic a red hot go again.
I like because I know you went into it before. I like that you had a bad experience, but you are keen to get back into it, because I kind of thought that you were just going to give that a miss completely. But I like that you are looking at doing it again, because it is still a really good profit center for the business. It is a good money
Yeah.
maker. If it's done right, it's super scalable as well, because there's, tens of millions of people, tens of millions of homes. Like it is a really, really hot market.
I think the mistake that we've made before is I've tried to do it, and because I hate the client and I hate the work,
That's not a
that's
good
what
basis, is it?
it's not a good basis. So I have a staff member actually who works with us who loves domestic and is amazing at it. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is what you like, kind of like what you did with Stacey. I think I'm going to employ somebody who can predominantly look after building that side of the business rather than trying to do it myself. It will fail again because I hate it. But it just seems stupid to be turning away so much business and just letting it go to somebody else when people want to use our services because they know that we're good. So I think that has to be our focus for 2025. I feel like our hoarding, squalor, and forensic business is pretty stable. It can grow, and it doesn't need all of my focus. So I feel like now is probably a really good time to be looking at diversifying into domestic and giving it a red hot go.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about it's silly to turn away that much business. It's like I felt the same way about vacate cleans. So one day I sat down and I added up the value of all the vacate cleans we'd said no to over the period of like 6 to 12 months. And it was like seven figures, like multiple seven figures that we turned away potentially. Um, and I was like, there's no way that I've always said that to me, vacate cleaning is like such a hard sector of the business to solve. And it's like, is it so hard that I want to give up millions of dollars? It's like, no. So I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to find someone who's got the ambition to build that sector of the business. I'm just going to let them kind of run with it, and I'll give them the leads and give them the framework and the systems to be able to run with it. And the biggest thing that I've learned as a leader who's employing managers now, I've got two managers, is that they're not going to know what to do at all. But the worst thing you can do is hold their hand through the whole thing. They need to learn to do it themselves, and they need to learn to go out and basically hunt and have that intuition and develop that skill. And so whenever one of my managers comes to me and they're like, I don't know what to do. How do I deal with this problem? I say,
Think, what do
come
you
back.
think?
Yeah, I say basically, I say, come back to me with three solutions and I'll pick one. And I found that that's a really good thing because it gets the gears in their head moving, it gets them thinking, and it also gives us three options that I can pick because obviously out of three, you should have one feasible option, and it's also going to show them the kind of direction and decision making they need rather than just saying, come back to me with a solution and we'll run with that. So that was a really good that was a tip given to me by my mentor. And so I've been using that a lot more recently. And it's accelerating the development of our management team a lot faster now. So,
Yeah, because they
yeah,
have to think for themselves. So when you hold their hands, they don't develop, they don't learn, they don't build any intuition around what it is that they're doing. They don't develop the skills. And then, so what is it that you're paying for? I do that, but in a lesser degree. So I might adopt that moving forward. Because if they ask me a question, if any of my team asks me a question, I always say, "What do you think?"
yeah,
You know, it's not very often I will give them the answer because it doesn't serve them well, and it doesn't serve me well either then.
yeah. That's it's exactly what was happening with Stacey and her assistant manager. When she was training her, I observed them for one day, and within half an hour, I said to Stacey, "You're doing this all wrong." She was just showing her. She was basically doing everything for her, and was like, "Just
For her.
watch me do it." And I was like, think about how I trained you, Stacey. Did I show you how to do everything while you watched over my shoulder? I was like, no, I told you, I gave you directions. I showed you a couple of frameworks. I gave you a couple of processes that are necessary to do the thing. But then I just gave it to you and I said, do your best with your own intuition and your decision making. And then if there's any problems, I'll come back and I'll work through them with you. I don't want to work on the solution with you. I'd rather just let you handle it and then work on any problems that come up. And so she started doing that with the assistant manager, and like it was like night and day. The training got so much better. She became much more effective because we were discussing. It's like, is this person right? I think we've made maybe the wrong decision. And it was like, no, we'll just change the training style a little bit, and that proved to work. I'm noticing now the sun is getting
It's
ridiculous
like
here.
I'm watching you, and you're going from like daytime,
Yeah.
nighttime, daytime, because it's like, what's going on? Is there like clouds coming over or something?
Well, it's the sun is beginning to set. It's 6 p.m. over here.
Ah, yeah. See, it goes a bit dark, and then it's like,
Yeah, it's not going to look very good on the video. Oh, and then I do that, and it's like I'm reflecting it onto my face. It's terrible. I don't have curtains or anything, so the only thing blocking my window is pictures of myself in the newspaper that are framed on the wall.
why don't have you at least got a blind? Have you got
No, I've got
nothing?
no. So this is a rental, and when I moved in, the person had never actually lived here. So there were no the curtains don't touch the floor. There's that much room between the curtain and the floor, so much light gets in, and then there were no blinds or anything. So I just put up framed photos of myself in the paper. There's a photo of us up there.
Is there? Oh,
Yeah.
that's cute.
I'll send you a
Oh,
photo after this, but it blocks
please.
out most of the sunlight and gives me a bit of privacy so all my neighbors can't see what I get up to. So, but now I'm left with this because there's a little tiny crack where
A little
sunlight's getting in, and it's making me look crazy at the moment.
angelic.
Angelic is the word, yeah, sure. But
So
yeah,
yeah, those
it's
are our goals for 2025. So watch this space. I have no doubt that we'll be in touch with you at some point, Jason, because you are the person to speak to when it comes to domestically. And the team actually watched your onboarding and recruitment package module on your coaching, and they thought that was absolutely amazing. They really got a lot from that actually.
that's great, and yeah, because even Scott and Gabby, they hired their first, I think, two employees now, and they just did
Yeah.
that off the back of that system, and it's so simple as well. A lot of people had good feedback about that. They said that it was so easy to follow, and within like an hour, they had the whole system set up and they'd started using it. So it's really cool that I'm able to have some sort of impact on other people's businesses now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it is just because like I failed and got up again and tried it so many other times and got to the point where I had the system that worked and then I could just show it to somebody else so they don't have to spend all the time and money doing it. Because you can either learn with time or money. Like I usually tell people, it's like you can do it yourself. You can spend a year trying to figure it out, or you can most of the time just pay someone else or buy a course or read a book. So yeah, but we're always learning, aren't we? We're never going to
Yeah.
stop learning. And the moment you stop learning, I think, is the moment that you start dying, really, because
Yeah.
your brain, like physically, your brain will shrink when you stop engaging it and you stop learning. And I think um, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure that's what causes things like Alzheimer's and dementia. Is that when people retire, they become inactive and they're not engaging their brain anymore, and it just begins to shrink, and they get these illnesses. So, like, I'm someone that I never want to fully retire, quote unquote. I always want to be working, just not physically. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're sort of the same, where you still want to have some involvement, but you just don't want to be hands on.
I feel like even though I say that this is my retirement fund, if I retire at like 51, 52, I have no doubt in my mind that I'll be like, well, what am I going to do now? And I'm just not going to be able to sit around and not do anything because I feel like we've got similar brains. It needs to be working, it needs to be functioning. I'll probably end up just doing starting either another business or I don't know, but yeah, I just don't think I'm going to be one of those people who's like sunning themselves on a beach with a cocktail every day. That's just not really who I am.
Business has ruined holidays for me. I can't take holidays anymore. I just can't enjoy them. I'm always working. And
Come on.
I start to feel depressed. Honestly, I start to feel like I am like all the life is being sucked out of me because my main purpose and my main motivator and driver in my life is my work.
Work. Same.
And to people that don't own a business, it sounds so crazy to them, and you can never explain it to them. Like my family, they don't get it. My friends don't get it, but like you
No.
and I and the people listening to this will get it because work really does become your life. And it's like at a certain
Life.
point, you'll be bitten by the bug of business, and you'll just live and breathe it, but you'll love it at the same time.
Yeah, I love what I do.
It's such a unique experience, and it's the business that you've built. No one else in the world or in the history of the world has built that business. You have built it to your own spec. It is completely unique in its own right. It's not like a job where thousands and millions of people have worked certain jobs, but the businesses that we have built is completely unique, and we have full autonomy over that. And that's, I think, the most special part about it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I wonder if there's anything else we can talk about.
What other questions have you got on your list?
So many, and we haven't even gone through any of them. Oh, look
You
at
might have
us
to do a
go.
part three.
I'm sure people would love that. Oh, here's a good one.
All right.
So I know obviously your son works with you at some capacity in the business.
He
Um,
does.
has he always been working with you in it, or did the business get to a point where you knew you needed a second hand and then you brought him in to see how he kind of fit in?
So not a lot of people know, but my son has a debilitating form of narcolepsy. So it's kind of like twofold. He worked with me cleaning for probably about 12 months when we first started. And then he exited the business and he went and worked for another company. And he did good, but the problem is he's a tired bear all the time. Like he falls asleep, he can fall asleep within seconds. He can fall asleep at a desk, he can fall asleep anywhere. So as my business has grown, there's been the option, or we've developed the role for Leon so that he can work. And he basically is he's my operations manager. So he manages all the functions in the background. He does all the invoicing, he does all the rostering, he deals with the clients, he does all the accounting, he does all of that kind of work. So I don't have to touch any of it. So it's good to have him there because I also trust him, obviously, implicitly because he's my son. Like, I'm never not going to trust him. And I think that's really good for the business. But it's actually also been really good for our relationship. Like, don't get me wrong. There are, Leon is sometimes on the receiving end of my short temper.
I can imagine.
I do feel sorry for him because he's the one, because he's family, he probably gets a raw deal sometimes because he's family. I probably talk to Leon sometimes in a way that I would never talk to the staff because he's also my son, so sometimes, you talk to your kids a certain way as well. But we're both really good. We both have a really excellent working relationship together. And my future win the business, I hope, involves Leon. And I hope that at some point it's a partnership, not just me. Like I want
Mhm.
Leon to be involved all the way through to the end and have a part in the business because I know that some people think that giving your kid a job in your business is kind of like it's like an easy way out. But the reality of it is, he gets a job that he has to do well because of who I am, but also it gives him a sense of self-worth and it gives him a responsibility. Whereas if he goes out into the working community, nobody understands his condition and he's likely to lose jobs, which will have a knock-on effect on his mental health. This way, he gets to feel good about his job, what he does. He's involved in a successful business and he can feel proud about that. So I actually really enjoy working with Leon.
That's great. And a lot of families don't get along in business. So but it's great that you have that special bond because you effectively raised him by yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, and I had him really young, so I had him at 18. So I always say that we grew up together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
so you've got an unbreakable bond, and
yeah.
nothing is going to be too much for the two of you. And it's kind of like couples that build a business together generally stay together. So it doesn't have to be like father son, mother daughter, or whatever. But statistically, husbands and wives that build a business together, on average, their marriages last way longer than couples that don't. I think it's because building a business is like can be like raising a baby. I don't know, I've never had a kid, but that's what I've heard. And it's like it's a very, very hard thing to do. And there's going to be a lot of squabbling and there's going to be conflicts. But at the end of the day, there's so much time, energy, and effort invested into it. And because it's a mutual investment of all of that and you're doing it together, it's like it can evolve the relationship between two people into something that is effectively unbreakable because you've built this yourself with this person and you've created that bond. And I feel like you're probably doing that with Leon now, where you have that special connection with him, and the business has probably helped with that in some way. I'm looking at ways I can get involved with my dad and bring him into my business and help him with his business because of the same reason.
Yeah, I'm really very lucky to I'm very lucky to have Leon as my son, and yeah, I think we do have a special relationship. We are very close. We're friends. You know, I'm his mom, he's my son, he's my operations manager. It's multifaceted, but we just work. He's really good as well at like putting up with me. Or if I'm like, I'm really overwhelmed
God, how
today,
does he
he's
do it?
really pardon.
How does he do it?
I
Ask him what his
don't know,
secret
poor
is.
kid.
He could do a whole podcast series on that alone.
I think he switches off. He's just like, oh, Barbara's on. He's really good at keeping me calm. He's sometimes like my calm reasoning when I am feeling all like maybe overwhelmed with what's going on with my day. I can ring Leon and say, I'm really overwhelmed today. And he'll be like, right, what do you need
And
me
he's
to
like
do?
that voice of reason for you.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, love him a lot.
That's great. Well, I need to meet him someday.
You do, actually.
I'm
I
I'm
think you'd
going to
like Leon.
Melbourne. I'm going to Melbourne in February.
When? That's when his birthday is.
Oh, even better. There you go.
What dates are you coming? Do you know? Oh, don't, you
It'll
can let
it'll
me know
be
after.
it'll be early Feb. I'm going for the Drake concert.
The Drake concert.
Yeah.
What date is it on?
I don't know. My friend's getting the tickets, but I think it's early Feb, so like first week. But yeah, we'll talk about that and
All right.
we'll be able to catch up again. It's always good when we get together.
Rabble.
It's always a right,
I
isn't it?
feel like I've known you for like a million years, honestly. Doesn't it feel like I've known you for ages?
Maybe I was your kid in a past life.
Maybe, maybe.
I feel the same way too. I think it's because we're so similar in a lot of different ways. And we have such unique personalities that it's kind of rare to find a similar person
Mm,
with that.
yeah. It's literally not even 12 months that I've known you, but it feels like so much
That's
longer.
true, actually. Yeah, it's been, wow. It's been like 9 months, if that.
Yeah. Yep. Isn't
Wow.
that crazy?
It is. It does feel like it's been years.
When
Maybe
you
it's
say it like
because
that, when you say it like that, you're like, wow. Ooh.
no, but it has though, because I have known of you for years because you are that woman who tormented me on a Facebook post, and that's haunted me forever. But yeah, maybe that's
Oh
what it
my
is.
God. Maybe that's what it is. For you, it feels like forever.
Yeah, well, no, that was a really great
Oh,
episode. I think we covered a lot of awesome stuff there, and it's always good to talk to you. So I'm glad that we finally got
anytime.
it on camera. I'm
Yeah.
glad we kept it G-rated, which is rare for us as well.
Yeah. Rare, definitely rare for me. You're lucky. I
So
tried to behave.
I appreciate your efforts. But in closing, is there any piece of advice or tip that you want to give people who are either getting into the business or want to grow their business from where they are now? Is there any advice that comes to your mind or experience that you can draw from your own journey to where you are now?
Probably two things. Don't be afraid to charge what you believe you're worth. And secondly, not every client is the right client.
100%. You need to get better at saying no. I say that to everyone. You need to get content with the idea of saying no because and get very clear on what your values are because if someone doesn't align with your values, they're not going to be a good client and it's going to give you headaches that no amount of money is worth. So I agree 100%. But yeah, thanks very much
Thanks
for
for the chat.
thanks very much for coming. I'm very mindful of your time and I appreciate it a lot because I know how busy you are at the moment. So I really appreciate it.
It's all good. Anytime, honestly.
Anytime. Okay, we'll do it again tomorrow.
All right, done. What time?
5 a.m. sharp. I'll see you then. No, but thanks everyone for listening. If you're still with
If you're
us,
still here. Not, there's probably
um,
nobody listening at this point.
please let us know if you want us to do more
If
of
you
this
are,
because we absolutely will. We can talk forever, but um, yeah, we have to be mindful of each other's time because we're two busy
I'm
individuals. But
busy.
I'll
But
always make
yeah, if people
time
do
for.
enjoy it, want to hear more, I'm more than happy to join on. I like talking to you.
Yeah, likewise, I can tolerate you. So
Just
I'll always make time for Mrs. Muscle.
Mrs. Mussel.
But yeah, this has been amazing. I'll have Scott and Gabby from Kings on next week, so
That'll
even
be a
more
fun
great
episode.
friends. That'll be another fun one. And then Megan, who is just the
Yes,
brains behind everything.
she is. That'll be a great one as well, actually. And then we should do one
Mm.
with maybe all of us, although that gets a bit scrappy then.
Yeah, we'll do a much higher production value version of the one we did before, not just a little lapel mic in the middle of a table with us talking about Girthmaster and whatever the hell else we were going on
In
about.
the random hotel
It
room.
was it was such a mess of a podcast. I don't think we talked about anything of substance on that.
Yeah, we'll do a more structured one, I reckon.
People loved it though, so there you go.
Gave us a
But
chance
yeah,
to see a little bit personality. Right, I'll let you go. Thank you so much.
thanks very much for your time. You enjoy your evening, and everyone else listening, please let us know what you thought of this episode, and we'll hopefully do some more in the future.
Cool. Sleep well.
All right, bye bye.
Enjoy your dinner. Bye.